And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Good day, Whiskies brothers and sisters. We're honored to have you, the viewer, and our panel with us tonight. My name's Dolph, and I'm the president of the Alberta Scotch Society, and I'm the founder of the Whisky Book Club. I'm your mediator tonight, let's say, to try to get all these guys in order. For those of you that are new to us, I'll explain a bit what we are. So we're first and foremost a group of whiskey geeks that love to share a dram and share a passion for reading, and in this case, mostly about whiskey or whiskey-related activities. Our present tome, our third book, is this one, right here. It was inspired initially by our sense of adventure and my long-held desire to do the Whiskey Trail or in Scotland or the Bourbon Trail with our friends down south. But I thought, Canada has so much history. It's got so much whiskey. Why not go on our own Whiskey Bourbon Trail? But we're going to call it a Canadian Whisky Journey. So thanks to Blair and Davin's book, this one again right now, we have the direction we need, the inside track to the distillers that we crave. And Davin and Blair will indeed be our spirit guides on this journey as we cross this vast, beautiful country of ours. So second, we're about the camaraderie that comes with sharing a dram, a book, and an adventure together. So let's get on with our cross-country road trip and get better acquainted with our country and the fine spirits that are produced here. We will, as in all previous weeks, come back at the end of this 5 minutes later with our after dram. It's more relaxed, it's more fun. Things come out that don't come out during this more organized session. And again, you'll give us about 5 minutes to do a bathroom break and to make our cocktails. And that's what we do. So without any further ado, let's do our roundtable introductions with our names, our other platform handles, as well as how you prepared our highlighted drink, which is the noteworthy drink, gin. So you have it on the rocks, you have it in a cocktail, is it straight? Tell us that as well. And something else if you have a second thing in our dram. All right, so let's start with Steve Lee. Let's get you on front and center.
Sure. Hi, I'm Steve Lee. I'm the proprietor and what I like to self-proclaim title of the Chief Spirits Officer at the Douglas Distillery. We make noteworthy gin and Douglas whiskey.
Perfect. Thank you very much, kind sir. We're going over to Blair. Oh,
hi, Blair Phillips, co-author of the Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries with Davin and Blair. Tonight, I am drinking a single malt cast strength from Douglas called the Grand Entrance.
The Grand Entrance, lovely. And let's go over to Drew, kind sir. Let's try to get over to Drew. There we go.
Drew Semper. I'm at Drew Semper on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Right now, I am drinking the 3 or 4 month old Barrel 6 from Douglas.
All right. The cast strength, 67%.
67%.
And Don.
I'm Don. You can find me on all social media as the Whiskey Dive and the whiskeydive.com. Due to border issues, I am not drinking anything from Douglas, but I decided to pick Two Loons Whiskey, which is about 40 minutes north of Spokane, Washington. So similar region. They also age in small barrels, so I figured it'd be a good single malt to go with.
Beautiful. Thank you all for that. And I'm Dolph again. I'm the president of the Alberta Scotch Society, and I'm the guy pushing the buttons tonight and asking the questions and keeping all these cats in line as we're doing it. So that's me. I'm going to start us off straight with Steve Lee. So based on some of your YouTube videos and an article in Country Guide that's called That's the Spirit, we can see that you have a bit more of a unique history than most distillers that we've met, or that I've met anyways. Maybe there's a lot of people like you. I don't think so. Couldn't happen. But tell us a bit about your history, starting from your bathroom distilling days right to where we are now, if we could, kind sir.
Yeah, well, I used to work at a ski resort in Banff for 18 years in emergency services, occupational health and safety. I was an EMT firefighter up there. And that was my basis. And because we were in an isolated village at 7,000 feet, I needed a hobby. And I started brewing beer years ago when I worked at a fishing lodge and wanted to take it to the next level. So I started distilling in my bathroom, so in a shower with a small copper pot still. And
I have a rubber ducky. It's not quite the same thing.
well, it's kind of unique being on the fire department and being in security. Here I am with my illegal, unlawful still, we'll say, in my shower, sitting on my toilet in the evenings, distilling away. But yeah, I really believe at that time, it started to hone. I didn't think it was important to where I was today. I realize it now, and that's where I really started to develop my nose and my palate for distillation, and it really benefited me when we first started out the distillery.
Perfect. And I won't go to me. I'll just keep it on you for a second. Tell me about the school you went to in Arizona.
I was partnered with, they were partnered with Bavarian Holstein and Arnold Holstein. They're who we purchased this still from out of Germany. So we did some training in Kingman and Triple Diamond Distillery and Flagstaff, which is now closed distillery, which had Arnold Holstein equipment.
Nice. Now I'm going to go back to all of us and a second question, but this is going to you, Blair. Just get you right involved in here. So you and Davin combined, you've talked or interviewed 253 distillery officials, owners, master distillers. Do you think there's more common now? Because the very first time that we talked, our very first two, we talked to people that were educated right in Scotland. And now we're getting into certain other people, and Steve Lee's kind of the first right now, but there's others coming up that were not from Scotland. They don't have, I guess, the classical training. I'm wondering if this is more and more common. Is there one more common than the other in Canada with our micro distillers?
I would say that the most common now is definitely Canadian trained, American trained, going to distilleries, shadowing with them. There are people that do have master's degrees at Heriot-Watt, but that's kind of like flying a flag of kind of like having a Harvard degree or a Princeton degree, and they're not as common as the self-taught crowd or the crowd that took courses in BC and that kind of thing. And you have to remember that recently at the Niagara College, they opened a distilling program.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of neat too.
So more and more happening. Good. You know what, guys? I didn't introduce what we're doing. So Blair, Drew, Don, and I, we're on our whiskey or Canadian Whisky Journey. So last week we were right up there at Shelter Point. Took us about 8 hours fun to get all our way down through Vancouver, Abbotsfield, taking number 3, Dubh Glas. And there's a nice picture of it, kind of where it is. You see it south of Kelowna, well, Vernon, Kelowna, really close to the border, so close to our friend Don. And it's a little bit of a close-up shot of where they are. All right, looks good. So that's what we're doing. And our intent was to come with this gentleman right here. And we were told that we've never been to the Douglas, and we were told that we would get a fantastic tour because of our connections with Blair and Davin. So Davin got us in. We're going to act like this is all the questions and comments we have now. It's going to be just like us in a state-of-the-art, brand new, beautiful distillery, 5 years old. We're going to call it brand new distillery, and getting the one-on-one tour. We're feeling like royalty, and we get to ask just about anything we want in these types of situations because there's no one around. And during the after dram, after we sit in the lounge, we got a picture of the lounge too. We're going to we're going to talk about all these in a second. But yeah, once we finally get to the lounge, that's when people kind of loosen up a little bit more and all the information really starts to flow. So that's where we are right now. That's our quick introduction, which I should have done that. But let's start with the startup stories because I love the startup stories. So we're hearing every week something new from different distillers, how people have opened up their distillery, the impetus for it. For you started in 2009. That was your idea to do it, and you opened up to the public in 2015. I just want to ask a couple questions that kind of go around there.
Sure.
Take us through the decision in 2009 to start your own distillery. Was there like one event, something that convinced you, Steve Lee, that, yeah, I got to get out of whatever beautiful job I'm doing in Banff, move somewhere else, restart everything to start this distillery? So is it a dream you always had, or just something that happened in your mind? I got to do it.
I don't think it was a dream. I was, I'd worked in the ski industry for a long time, and I was looking for a bit of a change, and I was looking for a business to start. I really didn't think about distilling. The truth of the matter is, really was drunk in a hot tub one night. I wish there was a more dramatic story than that. So
no, that's the story I want to hear, Steve Lee. Thank you very much.
You know what? I brought this. We had a whiskey, and here it is. This is
Hot Tub Ideas.
Hot Tub Ideas. That's one
fantastic.
of the first whiskeys we released. A couple of whiskey drinking friends in the hot tub. Plenty of whiskeys, way too many. And I started researching how to start a distillery, and if that was feasible. I thought it was too far out of the reach for me. And then I started researching that there was micro distilleries. I'd really only been exposed to the larger distilleries. So when I started doing research, it looked like something I could get into, and that's really what planted the seed.
Thank you, sir. I've got a question here online. So it's from Nicole, and she really wants to know about the orange. And I told her to look up or see if you were wearing the orange suit tonight. And she wants to really know why orange. I do too. I didn't ask. I should have.
If you really want me to, I can put it on for the after drink.
Oh, no. You do whatever you want. But I'm wondering, why orange? What's your affinity with the color?
There's a number of reasons for the orange. We wanted to stand out on the shelf. I think, distilling is easy. It's really not a complex thing to do. It's difficult to do it well. And starting a distillery, I think it's more than just distilling. We're problem solvers. There's a lot of things that go on, and branding is very important. So we worked with our branding partners, the Hired Guns on Vancouver Island, to come up with a brand that would stand out on the shelf. Orange is something, if you look in the stores, you don't see a lot of orange products. And orange was something where we could pop and we could be noteworthy.
Excellent. Hence the word noteworthy coming out. We'll talk about that a little bit more after. And tell me for the first time. I just read a lot. Why did you pick BC? Because you came from Alberta and you were in you were in the Rocky Mountains. You're coming from there, and you had the chance. You could have went to Alberta. You picked BC, and in what I'm reading, you want the drive-bys, you want the foot traffic, and you want the community that's going to support you. But is that the only reasons you're going to BC? What initially brought your attention to BC for one, and then Southern BC?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think BC was, you could start to see the real craft distilling movement was starting to change. They were starting to open up the laws here in British Columbia. So that was a big factor. Also, purely for selfish reasons, I wanted to make good whiskey. And we started to see, I believe it was Amaroot Fusion that won some awards one year. Warm climate matured whiskey gets a richer maturation in a shorter period of time. So for me, if I was going to produce whiskey and good whiskey in a shorter period of time, I wanted to be in a warm climate. So I looked at the warm climates in Canada, and the Okanagan was a great fit for us, and partnering with the wineries in the region was a good fit as well.
That makes sense. But then, did you think you were going to have the 10% age-old share coming out? Because that's
and we're even like some of the barrels have been 12%. So I knew that our evaporation loss would be high. I mean, there's no secret. Distilleries like Amaroot do have high evaporation loss, so there is a trade-off there. So we knew it was coming. We've started to manage our barrels a little bit better, so we started to push that evaporation loss to closer to the 10% range. So we knew it was going to happen.
All right, Don, how far are you from them?
Let's take a look.
I'm guessing like 3-4 hours. One of my thoughts, because I'm a teacher and I still work on Monday. If I didn't work Monday, I was going to take my motor home, and I was hoping that Don would be able to come north, whereas I was going west and kind of meet up where you were.
If the borders are open.
No, they're not, but we didn't know.
Yeah.
4 hours.
4 hours. Done. You're 4, I'm 8. That's a road trip. We could do
It's
it.
not bad at all.
Yep. Or we could still meet in Bath as well. All right, this is good. Thank you very much. And BC is a beautiful area, but when you said the Angel share at 10%, I was really taken aback. I would have expected. I would have guessed if someone said guess, I would have said like 6, 7, a little bit more than traditional what you hear the 4 or 5s. But 10 is that's huge.
Yeah, because Thailand is like 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So same temperature. So here we got another question up here. There we go. Click it. My wife's telling me to do it, and then she doesn't want it. There we go. Next batch sent out. Now, Alberta, because we wanted to talk about the alcohol coming out here, is how often do you come in? Do you have specific stores that you go to, Steve Lee?
To get the whiskey out, or now?
Go
ahead, sorry, Don.
No, just generally, when does it come out? We're not going to count now because it's too weird and probably not going to replicate itself in the future. But how often do you have new batches? And what do your new batches go? Calgary first, Edmonton, maybe down south? I'm just wondering.
Right now, the biggest challenge is really keeping up with the demand directly at the distilleries. So right now, we want to get it out to our industry partners, certainly the places in Edmonton, Calgary, liquor stores that have supported us out of the gate. But right now, we have trouble keeping it in stock at the distillery.
That's a good problem to have, though, right?
Yeah, and we want to ensure that visitors that come to the distillery have a great experience and that have taken the time to come and visit us is important. We also want supporters of ours to have it as well. So we do release online. So our social distance is available online right now, so you can purchase that, and we'll have it shipped out to you.
And Drew, that's what you purchased this morning.
Yep,
social distance.
That's what I put my order in for this morning. A couple of bottles of social distancing and the noteworthy hand sanitizer.
Excellent.
Yeah, hand rub.
All right, so Steve Lee, you choose to go there before 2009. You're thinking about it. You're there before the 2013 BC Craft Production Agreement. Okay, and you had I got the distinct impression from Shelter Point that you were a driving force in getting this up and running. So, are you one of the big driving forces? And you're allowed to brag a little bit with this. And why and how did you do this? Or it's the why. Not why, then how?
Yeah, it's me. So you're well informed with those savvy guys from Shelter Point. So dreamy.
They were drinking a lot, and they were saying a lot of stuff afterwards.
I wanted to watch the video before I had a chance to come on, so I wanted to see. But I love those guys, and we play really well together. We actually have some Lafroy quarter casks. We've traded for some Okanagan port style wine barrels. So we have a great relationship, and they make good whiskey too. So that's really important, and I love whiskey. So yeah, I mean, this is a passion project, and I have a couple of business mentors that I'm fortunate to work with. One of those things was, did I want to be a big part of a small distillery, or did I want to be a small part of a big distillery? So what became really apparent is that my passion was dealing with people and enjoying whiskey, and not just mine, but what the industry has to offer. So I really wanted to be a big part of a small distillery. So, and certainly the staff, our co-workers, we call them co-workers here, they'll tell you I'll do everything here, from cleaning the toilets to sampling the whiskey. So from the bottom to the top.
You're in there. The craft production agreement. So you helped that out, and at first, you're buying 100% BC grown base material.
Yeah, we
And-
went. There was a transition there, and I got some great advice before I started up the distillery, and I offer this advice when new distillers come in to visit here and want to start up a distillery. Drive-by traffic is huge.
Yeah.
And before that craft distilling agreement came into play, the advice I got from an existing distillery was the value of people walking through the door and purchasing it on site. That was huge. So it played a big role in the business plan and where I'm located today.
Good stuff. And you started, though, tell me, was it worth it to start before this to be the trailblazer, or do you think it might have been better? Well, if you weren't doing it, let's say you're not yourself, would have it been a lot easier or better for your company to start after that agreement? Or do you think having stuff grandfathered in actually really helped you in the first place?
Yeah, I think there's some benefits coming after. I mean, we were really at the right time, a transition time, things allowing us to sell at farmers markets. Those were keys to the success that we're seeing. Certainly I don't consider myself a trailblazer. I take a look at the distilleries that started up before us as the real trailblazers. I actually thought I was behind the curve. I thought everybody was so far ahead that I was playing catch up.
Okay.
Now, 5 years later, we can see, wow, we were at the forefront.
All right. And here's a question from Nicole. I'll put that in. Do you feel there's a point where the walk-in traffic starts to taper off and you need to look broader Canadian markets, trying to get into Ontario with their huge market, something like that?
Yeah, it's certainly important. We want to increase our distribution. Our noteworthy gin is something that we're slowly increasing. The Alberta market was really important for us. We started in BC, and as our demand grew and we're able to get a little bit of cash flow, we can open up that market. So looking at Saskatchewan, we've had our approvals with the FDA, so we're going to be moving into Washington State as well. You'll start to see us in Seattle. So we've had that approval in place for a little while. We just wanted to ensure that we had enough noteworthy gin that was going to make it down there. And we can go to events like Proof. So yeah, expanding our market is really important.
Excellent. Blair, I'm wondering if you think, just looking at it and creating your book, and here's the book. All right, you got to get the book out.
Oh, yeah.
Book right here. Did you get the impression that most other distilleries would not have been able to open as easily without BC Craft Production Agreement?
I think it helped a lot. And I'm trying to think back. Before 2013, there were about 10 distilleries in BC, and about 8 opened in 2013. And then since then, about 50 have opened. So it's definitely opened up the doors. And I think the bigger problem that they're running into now is with in places like Vancouver is finding zoning laws, like being able to open a distillery in Vancouver and find the proper zoning is actually what's preventing people from opening now. But yeah, that 2013 agreement was huge.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, kind sir. And it does come up. It came up really in the first one when we had the Odd Society Spirits, and Shelter Point was kind of like you, Steve Lee. They were ahead of the curve, and they liked the fact that they started it out. But they gave Steve Lee tons of kudos for doing it all. So, and they keep encouraging Steve Lee to get involved with all the politics and just help them out as much as possible. So they really do appreciate it, Steve. But another question for you, Steve Lee.
Sure.
You enlisted the help of Mike Nicholson when you're starting out. So, and that's after he was at Shelter Point, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So they got him first. So why did you do this? Was it a suggestion from them, or a suggestion from a friend? You heard about his name in the industry, and how much did he help you out with the process and starting out?
Well, I'm a passionate whiskey guy first and foremost. Before I started the distillery, that's what brought me into this industry. So I travel the whiskey circuit. I go to events, and certainly at the Victoria Whiskey Festival, which is amazing. And I knew Mike more on a casual basis, but certainly when we started to get the distillery going, I started probing around a little bit. You might know Emmett Hossack. from Whiskey Scores. He actually brokered an introduction with Mike, and we started talking a little bit more closely about what I was trying to achieve here. So he kind of brokered that deal, made a more formal introduction, I think.
All right. And I'll just keep you large there with this question. So you got a 300-liter Arnold Holstein pot still. I'm wondering if Mike is the one who kind of leading you towards that, or did you make that decision separate from him? And the reason for this is I'm wondering if you knew what your taste profile was going to be before you started.
Yeah, I think we kind of worked into the still. I had a rough idea of what I was looking for. We actually ordered the still before we started talking to Mike. But Mike was out here, it was an amazing experience. Mike came out and we sat on the creek that's just behind our place and talked about whiskey and what I was trying to achieve. And at that time, the still was already on its way.
Okay. So, and you had, let's get you on there. You're thinking about your initial spirit you want to create, or what you want 5 years, 10 years from now. I know you said you wanted the best whiskey in Canada or the world at one point, but what were you looking for as a taste? And how does the catalog look when you say, I want this, this, this? Does the catalog automatically kind of bring you to something else? Or are you actually talking to some type of rep that'll say, I think if this is what you want, the line iron's like this, and we're going to have the bulbous part here with the little one on top. How did that work out?
Well, we have a lot of creativity with our still. We're kind of more of a hybrid still.
Okay.
Because I wanted to be distinctly different on the gin end of things. So we modified the still. I didn't know if it was going to work until we got it here and got it operational. I had a rough idea what I was looking for, but I also wanted the equipment to tell me what we were doing.
Right.
I mean, we could change our yeast strains, we can change fermentation, we can even tweak our distillation. So we actually have a lot of control. I think if Mike wanted me to have a still, we'd have a Foresight still here, and it'd be giant size and very traditional. But we needed to have some flexibility with other potential spirits that we were making, even though our focus was on whiskey. So this was a good fit for us, and we've let the still kind of tell us what the spirit is going to be as well.
All right. So 5 years later, does it taste what you think it was going to taste like?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things. I mean, there's so many factors when it comes to making a whiskey, especially when we take a look at, depending on who you talk to, 70 to 80% of the flavor in a whiskey is going to come from the wood. And our environment and our wood was going to be a huge factor in what we were trying to do as well. I knew we would have a little bit of a cleaner spirit. I knew we would be a little bit more of an Irish style, Scotch whiskey style. Even though we're using single malt whiskey and we're double distilling. And in particular, with our social distance, I find it's a big caramel vanilla forward. We don't have a lot of the underlying spice. I think what Blair is having in Grand Entrance, you'll probably pick up a little bit more of a spice component. We had some custom-made barrels. And we got these microclimates in the distillery, between the top of the barrel rack and the bottom of the barrel rack. We can see as much as 5 degrees difference in that range. So we got all these microclimates. And Grand Entrance, which was just one down from the top, I find we're getting a little bit more of a spicy component coming out. Social distance came from the bottom of the rack, and we're seeing a bit of a different change in the wood and how that plays. Yeah, that's
the rack.
Wow. Well,
how many of those do you have, or is that your major one?
We have about 30 of those. Those are custom-made barrels. We actually talked a lot about those barrels with Mike Nicholson when he was here. We used to have a Cooper in Oliver. We don't anymore, unfortunately. I had those barrels made in the United States. We got some bourbon barrels, and we re-coopered them to half the size, to 100 liters in size. One of the big challenges I saw is that craft distillers were using small oak barrels, and there's not a lot of used wood out there. So they were charring them, and I just found that really it had a tendency to overwhelm the spirit, creating more one-dimensional. So what I wanted to do was have smaller barrels that had already been used for bourbon. So what I did was we took them apart and had them recoopered to half the size. So now we're getting that exposure to the wood, but good quality seasoned wood, which I think is really important.
That's cool. And you said you had a cooper. Was he on site, or you just had someone in the States do it for you, or at home, I should say?
Oliver used to have a cooperage here, and it was part of our business plan, actually, having a cooperage nearby. Shortly before we opened the business, the cooperage closed, unfortunately. However, the benefit is that the cooper remained in Oliver.
Okay.
So he actually teaches me how to do barrel repairs, comes here and charges us whiskey and gin as an invoice. So it's worked out really well for us. So that's been a big benefit.
Nice. Okay. And I'm going to have Don and Drew. They're going to ask you a question in a second. But while they're figuring this out, I really want to answer this one that came up before, because I've mentioned this 3 times. And right here, someone needs to define the audience, finer details, BC craft agreement, what it means. And I'm going to say how it started. It's 2013. And Blair, if you could correct me if I say something wrong. The decision was everything that you were producing had to be 100% BC grown. If you're using that, I guess if you were bringing in peat from somewhere else, it obviously didn't have to be grown in BC. And apart from that, to be considered a micro distillery, you also had to produce less than 100,000 liters before you became commercial. And that enabled you to sell to the small markets, so farmers markets and out of your own distillery, or on a smaller scale directly to the customer without going through the BC government. Any other big highlights I'm missing?
Is that for me or for Blair?
Either one. Anyone?
That's a pretty good.
You nailed it, really.
Yeah, that's a pretty good distillation of the definition for sure.
Okay. We're all good? So there you go, Sheila. I did it for you. And imagine that. I was able to do it. Drew or Don, do you have a question you want to throw out?
Yeah. So first, Steve Lee, I want to praise you for your dedication for quality over for quality over everything else. I was watching a couple of the YouTube videos that you did, and I found it very admirable that you stated flat out that if you can make a profit, awesome, but if you have to take a loss for the quality, then that's okay as well. So I wanted to praise you for that, because there's a lot of micro distilleries who they can't afford to take that risk of a loss. But my question is, you stated that you designed your entire distillery around growth. That essentially it's going to be a modular distillery. You can expand upon it as you go. Did you do the your whiskey production? Was that a part of that? Did you plan for your product to be able to be distributed as expected with your growth, or are you going, or did you plan for probably like a small run at the beginning to see how it would go, find out what your profile was going to be, and then decide to ramp up later on?
Yeah, so there's, I wanted to create a destination. I'm in it for the long haul. Like, I wanted to own the property. I didn't want to lease the space. So there's we're situated on 2.5 acres here. Everything that I've done in the distillery, like, we've only built half the building. We're living in 1,440 square feet, and I think 100 of that is for us just to walk around. It's a good thing that myself and the staff are really trim, so we can get between the racks and the pallets full of product. Things like this is 1,440 square feet. We have another 3,000 square feet to add on. Our main entrance right now will be an internal door in the future to a bigger cocktail lounge and retail area. Everything that we did, from the power that's here to the underground, we've already poured some of the footings for the second half of the distillery. If you're familiar with the 7 habits of highly effective people, it's beginning with the end in mind. And certainly I had an end in mind, and it's not a straight road. You're making constant adjustments along the way. I mean, we are very cozy right now. I did not think the barrels would take up that much space in the distillery. We thought we would build the second half. The eye candy of the distillery would come right away, but it's become very apparent that we need a storage warehouse for barrels and supplies is going to be next.
Cool.
All right. And just a kind of a side thing, I just wanted to put that on. When did you start selling to the BC liquor stores directly? Was that 5 years ago, or did it take you a year to kind of get the volume up before you could do that, Stevely?
We sold almost, actually, it's a really good question. We actually were selling Noteworthy Gin on Vancouver Island before we opened up the doors to the public.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's a little known fact. I just remembered that now. I actually seeded a little bit of Noteworthy Gin out. I figured that Vancouver Island would be a small market and we could seed something out, and we had some.
Okay, yeah.
So we got written about by Sean Sewell, who is a savvy bartender in Victoria, and then that kind of filtered out to the mainland, and we started getting calls, and I was like, oh, we're going to have to make more gin. I wasn't sure whether the recipe would be well received. You know, we were a bold, rich cocktail gin. I figured Vancouver Island was a small market. I could tweak it without anybody knowing. And
so when you went Vancouver Island, then are you going directly to the bartenders and talking them up and seeing what they're going to promote?
Yeah, I mean, we got written about right away, and I think that real cocktail, the Vancouver Victoria cocktail scene was really emerging at that time, and it's experienced some great growth. So I think our biggest thing was word of mouth marketing for us. Perfect.
Drew, do you have a question, buddy?
The question I had was basically covered. So I'm going to ask Yukon Dave's. The 5-degree temperature variation, the microclimate, is that by design or was that accidental?
Yeah, well, we knew that the distillery would be warm, so we knew that was going to take place. We're storing the barrels in the distillery right now. I think we'll get something that's a little bit more temperate once we have built the warehouse outside. So it's accidental, and it's certainly a learning experience. We were measuring the temperature. Like, why is this top barrel so different from the bottom barrel? We're using the same wood. We're using the same distillate. What is affecting it? So the main factor is the temperature. So it's accidental.
But a good accident nonetheless. Blair, have you been there yet?
No.
I keep asking Blair, and I feel like I'm bad doing this and putting you on the spot, Blair.
Yeah.
But I know they were going to. Was that one of your spots that you were going to do with the tour?
No, Davin did. He was at the distillery, in 2018?
Yeah.
Yeah. So while he was doing the Okanagan, I was in Southern Ontario at that time doing that run.
No, I meant with the book, when the book was coming out, because you both you and Davin had a crazy schedule of places you were going to go. Were you going to go to the interior as well?
I don't think so. I think a lot of it was in Vancouver. And then a lot of it through the big cities like Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton, that kind of thing.
All right. Thank you, sir.
And that was Kent's question, not Yukon's, Dave. And Kent's got a follow-up. He says, do you think you'd be able to use that 5-degree to create a Solera setup?
That would be cool.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
How about I'll think about that and get back to you in about 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting. Certainly, I mean, the nice thing for small distilleries, it's definitely a possibility. And blending is, we could do stuff blending after the fact, taking a top barrel and adding the bottom barrel and blending as well. We spent some time, which was hosted by Odd Society with Dubh Gandhi, who was at McAllen and now is at Lakes Distillery, I believe. It certainly got us thinking about how important blending is and what we can do. Just spending the distilleries that spent the day with them just really brought up the BC industry.
Thank you, sir. Blair, can you explain a Solera system for us, please?
Now, it's me on the spot, but is that the technique where you take some of your, you don't empty all of your barrels, you leave just a little bit left, and then you backfill it, so you're constantly bringing new in with the old?
Yeah.
But that's through mixing tanks, right, with whiskey? Because I know with wine it's done that way, but with whiskey, isn't it done through blending tanks?
It's essentially a living barrel, so you never let the barrel empty.
So it's done through the barrel.
I think
That's not really done a lot in Canada.
That was my next question, Blair. Do you know where any place actually does it?
Yeah.
Emerald Spectrum did, I believe, their whiskey was done something similar. Once the barrels got down, and they batted them together, and then after more evaporation loss, they batted them together until they were getting down to minimal barrels.
Yeah, I think Dad's Hat Rye does it as well.
Oh, I've got some.
Yeah. And
Let's try that then.
Nick,
Gentlemen, sorry. Before the question, I just want to try the Scotch because I've been kind of waiting to taste it, and my gin's done, and it went down like water. I'm sorry, guys, and I want to get into the whiskey, so I'm cutting it. I want some whiskey, and this is what we got: barrel sample C006, 3 years and 4 months old, at 67%. So it's lovely on the nose. I've put it to my list, but I haven't drank it yet. Steve Lee, you want to tell us a little bit about it before only two of us, or just me and Drew, have the sample? So I'm.
Yeah, well, I pulled that. I wanted something unique for you guys to try and to have something for you at cask strength. And one thing that I think is important to note is that in Scotland you have more evaporation loss of alcohol than you do water, even though that evaporation angel share is lower. Here, our water is evaporating faster than our alcohol. So even though we're filling at 62.5% into the barrels, we're seeing it climb exactly. So it's climbing, 1.5% to 2% a year in the barrels. So you're getting really quite a strong whiskey out of the barrel at 60. Is that one's 67%, I believe.
Yeah.
Charlie 006 is that's 100% ex-bourbon barrel. That's the 100 liters, those custom barrels that you saw in your one photo there. Those were Jack Daniel's barrels, so some big bourbon notes, caramel and vanilla there. But not as much of the dry oak that we were getting from higher up. That's about mid-rack on Charlie 6. Okay.
Don, I feel bad you don't have any, but I will save some for the next time I see you. You will get some.
Sounds good. If
I have samples for everything that we have, we're good.
You can come and visit us, and we'll pull a barrel sample for you.
Awesome.
And I'll bring the camper, and I'm going to hook it right up to you, or do I have to go to the across the street to the camping ground or campground, Steve Lee? I want to be.
We're trying to build a campground in the back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Perfect.
So for savvy whiskey people who want to be within stumbling distance of the distillery, we're gonna have.
Oh, that's fantastic.
that's good.
I'm trying to make some type of tour, a Canadian whiskey tour with people in RVs where we come together to one distillery and then we kind of branch out to a whole bunch of other ones, and you're close to some. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But I think that's the thing to do, Don. I think you should meet me there halfway, and that might be the start of our tour.
Yeah, since Banff is looking unlikely, that would work.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Steve Lee, are you going to Banff? Banff Whiskey Experience?
That was to Steve Lee, right?
Yeah, Steve Lee. Sorry, are you going to the Banff Whiskey Experience?
Yeah, I think, and that's on our radar. We've been asked before to go, but I didn't think it was fair for us to attend and pour whiskey and not have it for sale. I didn't think that was very fair to the guest, the consumer. So yeah, it's something we're going to be doing.
Nice. And
I think Odd Society was pouring last year without bottles for sale.
They were. I'm not sure if it wasn't for sale. I know. Well, that really puts pressure on me. So
no pressure.
Last year. Yeah. Yeah, Gordon asked me if I was going, and I said we're going to wait another year.
Okay, well, and that's you should. Blair, are you thinking you might want to go as well? I know Davin's not, but I'm hoping you will.
I should be. It all depends on what happens with the with this whole mess that we're in right now.
Yeah.
The plan is to bring the book out and do a class and try a bunch of stuff across the country. So,
all right.
Yeah.
And just going back to, and I think it'd be great if you can. I want to meet you in person, Blair. I'm sorry. I see a lot on this, but it just seems like I really should. I'll be Whiskey asks on this because he does have a sample. Nice and sweet to start, expecting it to be hotter, and I haven't added water.
Yeah, at 67, I was expecting a lot hotter, a lot more of a hit. It is super smooth at 67.
Yeah, and I do like the oily feel to it.
Yeah,
I do like that. The pot still's given that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny. I generally like cask strength whiskey.
Yeah, same here.
Overall. But even with water, I find when we're in that 20 to 30% range, with us, it brings out an underlying sweetness in the whiskey as well, which is really rare for my palate. I like stronger whiskeys, but this one it has a kind of a silkier mouth texture, and certainly you're getting that directly out of the barrel. It hasn't gone through a filter or anything as well. So yeah, it's a full flavored whiskey for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to put some water to it and see what we get. Drew, did you put water in it yet?
I put in a couple of drops, and yes, it got a lot sweeter, and I really liked it. And just rolling back through the questions, just as you're tasting through there, Nick asked, she said, you said Irish style distilling. Are you referring to the single pot still versus the column, or using malted and unmalted barleys?
Just more of the flavor profile, lighter flavor profile, less grain forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So not the actual distilling process, but the flavor profile of the end result.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
100% malted barley right now. We do have some malted rye in the back that we're going to be distilling with. Probably won't get to it till September.
Yeah. Who malts it for you, Steve Lee?
Gambrinus.
Okay. I'm wondering if you want to open up that cooperage, and you would be the guy that would be supplying all the barrels to everyone else in BC. You've got a lot of distilleries that would need those barrels because you're just about the closest you come to the U.S. border, unless they go up Seattle into Vancouver. I think you could be it. You'd be the hub, man.
I think it was too bad that the cooperage closed. I thought there was just as we were entering the industry for growth, they were kind of leaving the industry just at the same time you were coming in. And there's a huge opportunity for a cooperage and custom barrels. I mean, it's funny, we have some Glas barrels that we have in the distillery here that are a real challenge to work with.
Okay.
A cooper.
Someone on site or close. Yeah. Okay.
Would you consider messing around with some of the wine barrels in the area and some of the brandy barrels and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we have. We've done a number of cask finishes. We've done Bordeaux blend style red wine finish. We've done some port style wine finishes that have turned out really well. We haven't done full maturation. We actually got some, we give some barrels to Odd Society that's been doing full maturation in those. And Gordon gave me a sample of that when we were down late January, early February. And it's turning out really well. We haven't done anything for full maturation just yet. I've just been using it as a finish. There's a lot of oak and a lot of flavor in those barrels. So I'm hesitant.
100 liters. Yeah. All right, Karen, sir.
Certainly are. I think it's important. We're in the wine region. We have access to some really good quality barrels.
Yep. So another question, you'd mentioned before that you had, like, Andrew's got a barrel. How many other people are you open to somebody buying a barrel of make from you or aging from there?
Yeah, I think, one of our successes here for the distillery, I mean, we sold the gin to keep the lights on, much like a lot of distilleries sell a clear spirit out of the gate. gin has been amazing for us. It actually has been so good for us. It inhibited our whiskey production in the first year.
Oh, wow.
It was just me doing production. And then we brought in a fabulous production employee who works here part-time for us, PJ, if anybody visited the distillery. He's been amazing for us. He's our mash man to help us increase our production. And I'm trying to think of the last question. I don't know if it's because I had too much whiskey.
You should have more.
Oh,
What was the last question?
people buying like the whole barrel and
Buying
aging it. Like,
barrels.
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had too much whiskey. You know, we only drink a little bit throughout the day. One of the successes for us in the distillery is, you know, selling barrels is not a new concept. You can get it from a lot of distilleries.
Mhm.
What we did was just sell a barrel portion. So that barrel portion has allowed us to produce the full barrel, and in a few years' time, we call them our cask futures investors. They get their 44 bottles, and we get the remaining amount. So we eat the evaporation loss. You know, we're not putting that loss onto the investor because we didn't know what that was going to be. So hugely successful program for us. Initially, we had trouble keeping up by filling the barrels, and all these cask futures customers were waiting 6 or 8 months until we could get the barrel filled. For the first time ever, we're actually ahead of the game. We've been pre-filling our cask futures barrels, so we have, I think, at least a half a dozen that we're ready to sell right now for investors.
So how much is the cask futures for the 44?
Yeah, so for the 44 at what we call bottle strength is 46% ABV.
Okay.
It's $2,288. And for the cask strength, and that's what it'll come out at, is $2,700 for 44 bottles.
Not bad.
44. So someone do the math. I know I'm a math teacher, but I don't want to get my calculator out. Someone do the math and tell us how much we have to pay per bottle.
On the bottle strength, it's $52 a bottle. On something that we retail for $97.50. We think it's pretty in line with the industry and fair price. We actually, our initial investors, we had no idea that our whiskey would turn out well, and we wanted to share in the success. And I think, you know, we have a vested interest in that barrel on the remaining half. So we talk to the cask futures investors. We have a lot of creativity in there. You know, we had one cask future investor who loved the winery, Blasted Church. So we finished his barrel in a Blasted Church port style wine barrel for him.
That'd
we
be
were
nice.
willing to take that risk and work, and you know, they're the reason. Our investors are the reason, really, why we have a good whiskey program now. They're supporting.
All righty. I've got a question about the whiskey itself. So if we look down there, it says you'll be able to taste our passion in every bottle we produce. So I'm not being facetious, but I want to know what that tastes like to you. What's your taste profile now that you're kind of actively looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough question. We've been asked that question before, and it has a bit of a marketing spin on it. But the passion is the quality we want to put into the bottle. You know, I just don't want to, you know, even in this climate right now, even if you're making average whiskey, you know, you're going to sell out. But for me, it's important that we're making good whiskey. And the Canadian Whisky Awards, you know, going to that dinner one
Being
time.
the guy. Yeah.
You know, John Hall, you know, I was enamored with John at the time. He was changing the industry. And, you know, I have a few moments that I spent with John. And one of those times was, you know, we're in the lineup, we're getting our food. And I was talking to somebody and I said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to start up a distillery. And John, you know, grabbed my arm and corrected me and said, no, you are building a distillery. And that was a significant moment for me. And I was like, yeah, I am building a distillery. So my passion is what we're producing and what we're putting into the bottle. You know, I'm here every single day, unless we're not on an event or at our market. You know, I spend a lot of time at the distillery. I'm passionate about what we're doing. We're passionate about improving and chasing that goal of being the best whiskey in Canada, which I hope that we do achieve, but I also hope that we don't, because second place always tries harder.
Sure. No,
Yeah,
that's
so
it.
that was a long answer.
No,
Is that-
I want to be first anyways, and then because you're just going to want to stay on top the whole time, because you seem like a little bit of a competitive type of guy too. So I think being first will be good for you.
Yeah.
I think you'll be all right.
Too.
Yeah. How long did it? Actually, no. I just want to say, Don, you and I, we just need a paradigm shift. We have to decide we're distillers, and we're just going to do it. That's our paradigm shift. We're just going to do it, and then beg someone to give us a job. That's right. Steve Lee, how long did it take you to get it right with when you got the new stills? When were you happy with how it was flowing with you to get to know you, the machinery?
It was a long time.
Was it?
And certainly even the base spirit, I made the base, just because I like drinking good whiskey doesn't mean I can make it. It's hard, and we all drink good whiskey and we have a relative idea of what good whiskey tastes like. But when it comes to a new make spirit, you don't get that much experience with it. So I really, really struggled with it. And, I hesitated in filling the barrels. I didn't know if this base spirit that I was making was going to be good. Certainly Mike was a huge influence. He came out one day and we spent some time on the still, and having his level of experience here just in the couple of days that he was here was amazing.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, super fortunate. And, he's like, what's your problem? Just get it into the barrels. He said in his thick Scottish accent, in a not so subtle way. And it was true. We needed to get it in the barrels to see how it was going to change in the barrels. And I was fortunate, I joke about that bathroom and distilling in the bathroom, but that really honed my nose, more importantly, but my palate as well, into what we were doing. So when we got operational and stuff started coming out of the still, I had a good base knowledge for my nose, and that played well. And what I see with some of the startup distilleries is they're just starting with the still and distilling right away. I experimented on my friends for years.
And they're perfect because they will tell you if something's not very good, right? Well,
absolutely.
My friends will tell me if I'm doing something really wrong. When I make a beer and it's crap, they tell me. So hopefully you had that type of friend where you could actually learn from them. But you had tons of experience.
And I think, the question is, when did we know it was right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're constantly improving. One of those things, when we were at the Whiskey Awards this year, somebody asked, "Oh, you have the best whiskey in Canada?" I was like, "No, we're not there yet." And Jovia, my girlfriend, she's like, "You really shouldn't tell people that." And I was like, "Well, it's true. We're not there yet." So we needed a better phrase. So now what I tell people is that our best whiskey is yet to come.
Okay.
So, and I really truly believe that we are getting more knowledge. Our industry in BC, sharing information, sharing barrels, seeing how Leon and Shelter Point is a wealth of knowledge. Spending time at Odd Society, where they brought Duval Gandhi in to do the blending workshop. These things are making us all better and are making the whole, making everybody better, but it's also making us better. So when do
the
we
whole
get it
industry
right?
And you too?
I don't know. I think we're just constantly increasing and getting better as we go.
Okay. Blair, in your travels, let's say Ontario, everywhere else, you've seen a lot of startup distilleries. How long do you figure, without you naming any names, it takes people to get it right until they're making something that you could appreciate and you're thinking this is a good spirit?
Well, I think that a lot of the new breed distilleries, they got to watch the United States, what was happening down there about, let's say, 20 years ago or so, and all the mistakes that were made. And also the people who are distilling in Canada, they're just, because of the vicious tax laws, they just have this huge passion for it. So there's a bit of a chemistry already within that. But I don't know. With the resources today, Steve Lee was mentioning that he does a lot of consulting. If people come to him and ask for questions, he'll answer them. It's the same thing in Ontario with Stillwaters. They did the same thing. Don DeMonte at Last Straw does the same thing. So I think now, from the time the stills are installed and as you're waiting for the red tape to clear, a lot of places can get something out on the market that's going to be delicious. And I think the duds in the industry are probably the minority, if you ask me.
All right. No, that's good. And a healthy respect for what's going on out there. Thank you very much, Blair. Gentlemen, we're going to do last comments before we sign off. So, Steve Lee, we're going to start with you. Do you have any final comments before we break and go off to the after dram?
No, I don't think so. I'm passionate about the industry and what people are doing, and I think everybody comes in, they're like, I don't like gin or I don't like whiskey, and I was like, well, what type of gin? What type of whiskey? So I encourage people to get out there, try everything that's out there, find something that fits your favorite flavor palette, and it's an experience.
Thank you very much, sir. Blair, last minute, and I'll hold up the book as you talk.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking, just seeing myself on the screen here with this orange, I just look like I'm working at a penitentiary right now, and
you're
I smuggled in some whiskey, and yeah. So that's my final thought: is I'm innocent. I didn't do it.
Don, any final thoughts from you, bud?
No, I'll save my next question for the after dram.
Good stuff. Drew, final thoughts?
Sam, I'll still save some questions for the after dram, but it's a very impressive dram.
Oh, I'm loving it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a fantastic start to our evening. Thanks to our listeners. Thanks to the panel. So, Steve Lee, Blair, Don, Drew, and I, it's been an absolute pleasure for us to be here talking with you all tonight and talking to each other. I really look forward to these nights all week. But we're moving on. We're moving our conversation to the distillery tour, from the distillery tour to the tasting room. I showed you a picture before. I'll do it again later. It's more relaxed. It's equally as engaging. We're going to be talking about other people in the industry, kind of like smack talking a little bit, maybe, if I can get some stuff out of Steve Lee. Davin, a co-author, Blair Phillips of the Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries, portable expert to over 200 distilleries. Davin might be here. He might show up. He had to do a tasting with, was it Vancouver, Victoria?
Victoria tonight.
Victoria? Okay. And this was made way before he made plans with us to do this. So maybe he shows up, maybe doesn't. That's okay. If he's not here, we'll badmouth him too. So,
Yep.
What better activity is there? You got to come back. What better activity is there than having cocktails? We're going to have Negronis, and I'm going to keep going with my scotch, though. I'm going to pour a little bit more, but Don, I'm going to save you some. Don't worry.
Awesome.
Well, it's whiskey and not scotch. But anyway, my whiskey. So what better activity than drinking this, spending time with great people, right? So please come back. You've got 5 minutes on this channel. 5 minutes-ish for the after dram. You don't want to miss a minute of it. And if you don't want to miss a minute of the next 13 weeks of the Whisky Book Club, click the like, click the subscribe button, and we'll all be happy. So, gentlemen, I will see you soon. Thank you very much for our times together. And sláinte, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheers. And let.